Hey, I've had a lot of questions about various YouTube things, how to do them and whatnot, so I figured I'd start doing a series on all the little things that it takes to run a YouTube channel. One of the major things that happens with every single video is making a thumbnail for the video, and I know it seems really simple. It's like it's that little thing you click on, and then you never see it again for the video. But thumbnails are how you generate a lot of traffic for your channel. Having an eye-catching thumbnail is one of the things that you can do to really make your channel stand out from a lot of the other things that just use like an MS Paint background or just a random clip art image from the internet. For starters here, I'm going to be using Photoshop. You can use whatever image editing software you want. Hell, you can probably even use MS Paint, even though I just said, there's some MS Paint ones out there. But yeah, I use Photoshop because when I went to school, that's what I learned how to edit photos on. And so by extension, all of my stuff is done using Photoshop. So here we go. This is a different save file, but it's basically the same thing of what I use for my YouTube thumbnails. Going all the way down, let's get rid of all the layers. This is the background image that I kind of based my thumbnails off of. It's just a screenshot from, I think, the introductory mission in Rise of Iron. And I really liked just the overall feel of this screenshot right here. There's a very subtle border going around it, has a very kind of muted feel overall, but there's plenty of detail in there. So what I ended up doing was getting one of my friends, Andy, who works on a lot of my stuff for the Twitch channel, to make me a bunch of various backgrounds. We can just start going through these here real quick. You got some like a blue one, a little grid pattern, some various colors and shades of orange. But yeah, that's basically what I kind of do. And what I usually do is I just use this blue one right here because it's easy. But sometimes there are some images that I need to use, like, something orange on, and that'll help out a little bit more. It'll make it a little more eye-catching to use that as the background than just say a blue one. And then we also have a gold border because in the very original image that I really liked, there was that, there's a very subtle border around it, and borders kind of help things. Okay, let's make that visible. And then at the very corner here, I put a little badge there. When it's, normal thumbnail size, it doesn't take up a lot of screen space. And I think I end up making that thing smaller every time I make a thumbnail just because I don't know, I feel like it takes up a little bit too much space, but at the same time, it's one of the easy things to identify that, hey, this is a Patrick Casey video. But yeah, you don't really have to do that. The reason, by the way, it's on the left side is actually, it's pretty simple. We read text from left to right in the English language. So usually when you look at an image, you're looking at the left side of it first. Ideally, I'd have it at the top left-hand corner, but since I usually put my text up the top part of the image, that would make it way too crowded up there. So bottom left. But still, you look at the left side of an image before you look at the right side of an image generally, so you're going to notice that little identifier there as well. All right, so one of the things that I generally have to do is make image thumbnails for like a weapon video. So let's go find an image to edit. I have just a ton of images that I can do here. I haven't done this thorn one yet, and I have no idea if I'm actually going to ever use this image, but hey, for illustrating, let's go ahead. Okay, so traditionally this is just a screenshot from the game. This is a screenshot where people were able to find the new ornament for it. What am I going to do here? All right, first thing that I always do with a screenshot is kind of do some very basic editing. The first thing that I always do is edit the levels of an image. And so I'm not sure if you can tell from this video, but it is a little bit muddy. I have a calibrated monitor, so I can see colors really, really well. But yeah, so it's like it feels a little bit muddy, and you don't really notice it until you kind of go into the levels and bring the highlights. I'm looking at the histogram over here on the right-hand side, and it's like the shadows, the left-hand side have plenty of detail, lots of good midtones, but it's very flat overall for the highlights. And, see, that's kind of before, and that's a little too much, but Yeah, about right there. So there's still plenty of detail in the highlights. Yeah, that's a little washed out there, but when you're looking at it really small like that, the rest of the image, the midtones, the shadows, look really good now. Specifically, the shadows actually pop out a little bit more, just due to the highlights being brought up a little bit more. And the other thing that I generally do is do some color balancing. It's hard to tell. You kind of have to look at the overall image, but it's a little bit green. For some reason, the Destiny menu has like a very slight green tint to it. So I usually end up balancing that out with just like a little bit of magenta, like barely any magenta at all, and then a little bit of blue as well. Too much. That was too much. That was too much. I think +3 or so. You don't, and it's like, oh, well, what the hell did that just do? If your monitor is properly calibrated or whatever you're watching on, you can tell that, yeah, I got rid of like a very slight yellowish green tint that's on this, and it made Thorn a little bit more chocolate-like. But overall, the image is a little bit better color balance. It's actually a little bit cooler now. I think I had a little bit too much blue in there. Okay, yeah, that works a little bit more. So here's the normal image, kind of dark and murky, and then there's the edited image. Very simple stuff like that. That's going to allow the weapon, once it's in the thumbnail, to pop out a hell of a lot more. And what I'll do, I'll just like flatten the image once I'm done with that. Now, how to actually select the image and get it off the background. Since I flattened the image, I'll, when I end up taking this over to the original document, I won't have to worry about selecting different layers, making masks. It'll be really simple. But yeah, so what I use here is the magic wand tool to select this from the background. You can change the tolerance, like, and put the tolerance up at 103, and, well, that actually worked really well. Normally it doesn't do that. Or you can have the tolerance down at like 1, and it'll take forever to select all these little the entire background off. So for Thorn in particular, this image, since I already put it up really high, I can show you that like a tolerance, generally what I use is about a tolerance of 15 for all the images, because a lot of images or a lot of weapons and armor have kind of a blue hue to them. So they end up kind of going into the background a little bit more, and it's kind of hard to separate them out. This Thorn, however, has a very like kind of reddish tint to it, so it stands out from the very blue background. But I'm going to keep the tolerance of 15. Actually, I'll turn it up to 29. And then I'm just selecting, I'm holding down Shift and just selecting down large portions of the image. And almost got everything. There we go. So it's like, oh yeah, no, we're done. We selected it. Not so fast here. So Thorn in this particular image, it looks like it has a little bit of a glowy effect on it. So you got to go in there, you can select, you can hold down Shift, select there, and you should be good. And then there's you want to be sure in all these little like corners that you got it as well. So in this little part right here, get in there, select that. All right, cool. And then there's one right there. This is just the kind of the more mundane, boring parts, but you want to make sure you get the selection right now, because later on you're going to have a kind of a rough time trying to get all the little artifacts from selecting everything out. So then what I do, Control-Shift-I, it inverts the selection, so now I just selected the gun. So previously I'd selected everything else but the gun, and now I selected just the gun. And so it's like, okay, got the gun selected, cool. Again, not so fast. There's this wonderful tool in Photoshop called Refine Edge, and you can get in there and really see the what the selection will look like. And this is jagged. This is really jagged. If I were to bring this over right here, it would just look bad. So there's a great tool called Smooth, and it'll smooth everything out a little bit. But what that usually ends up doing is, we had a wonderful selection where none of this blue is showing using the Smooth tool. That kind of, now you can see some of the blue. So then there's a Shift Edge where you can bring in the selection a little bit. You can mess with the contrast some as well. Really how do you learn what all this stuff does? Well, I mean, like what everyone does when they're first messing around with Photoshop, just move levers and see what happens. That's kind of how I learned how to do this, and that's how you can too. And you can also mess with the radius of the selection. Like if you were to jack the radius up, everything that just turned white isn't selected anymore. I know, odd. Um, but I'm just kind of just messing around with all these little things until it works and see if you can smooth it. And it just made everything really round, but all these jagged parts got really messed up. So usually smoothing, I use like, I don't use it too much in there. And there's a feather, like feather makes the outside edge a little bit smoother as well. And all right, that looks roughly pretty good. Good enough for government work, as my teachers used to say. And then we'll hit OK. And now we'll hit Control C to copy everything in this image over, and we'll bring it over to this. And I have a little folder here of weapons. There's nothing in this one, but in my normal one, I have every single weapon I've ever rotoscoped out in this one particular folder, just in case I need to remake a thumbnail with that particular image. So I'll Control V that into that particular folder right there, and then look at that. Oh, it looks really good. You know, we're pretty close to being done here, but yeah, you know, this looks really small in the thumbnail, so we'll Control T, bring up some resizing for it. Okay, yeah, that takes up a much better space, and look at all the lovely editing that we did on it too, right? Right? Like it pops out from that background just a little bit more. It's not gonna be completely muddy, but for one thing, there's still that little kind of outline around it, which, you know, some of it's okay, but what you want to go back and do is take care of these little problem areas right here. So there's a tool that's just a quick mask feature. You put that on it. It's like, well, that didn't do anything. Well, I know. Now we get to do some really simple edits right here. Instead of going in and just using the eraser tool, which is, I don't like doing destructive editing for any of my things. I go in, I make masks for each image, and then just paint out what I don't want. This is how you would normally edit a photo. So say you need to, like someone is looking weird in a photo or something, you need to edit something out, but you don't want to destroy the image because that's the only copy of that image that you have. This is the technique that you would use. So there we go. We just cleaned that up. And that little section looks a lot better now. There's still a couple small little areas that you want to take care of, like that little guy right there, this guy right down here in that bottom left hand corner, and you're just going to go through the outline of the image and make sure everything looks good. Now, the reason all this blue is actually showing up is mainly because of the refined edge tool that I had previously used. You know, I could just make this look really good, but that'll take a really long time for actually showing this, and I'd rather this not be a 30-minute video of me editing thumbnails, because that's kind of boring. Okay, so we got this thorn sitting right here, and you know, it pops out from the background a little bit. It doesn't look that bad, but you know what else do we need? What else do we need? One of the things that I will traditionally do is do an outer glow layer. Why do you want to do an outer? Oh, yeah, hold up. Okay, I'll fix that later. An outer glow makes the gun pop out from the background just a little bit more. And, you know, you're definitely going to notice that, hey, that's the thorn gun. But a black outline looks pretty good. But, you know, for the theme of the thorn weapon, we're going to go with green. I feel like green would be really cool to use. So what I did here is I selected green from the gun itself. When you make a outer glow for the image, you traditionally want to try to use colors that are actually within the image itself. If you don't, it can be a little bit too distracting, and not in the way that you want it to be. It's like you want it to be eye-catching, but not like, oh god, that thumbnail looks awful, eye-catching. So using colors that are actually within the image is a very easy way to make sure it looks good. I have a preset outer glow here that I use for all my text in Photoshop, so I always have to edit it for one of these. So now look, the glow is the same color as the normal glow, which is great. But it still doesn't look quite good. We can make it look a little bit better for Thorn in particular, and see that there's these little artifacts down there. Sometimes when you use the magic wand tool, there's going to be like small pixels, like 1 by 1 pixels that end up not getting selected for some reason. But that's really easy to edit those out. The spread tool right here, you got, yeah. So basically that just it makes some of the stuff larger. It makes the outer glow larger. But you don't really need to use a hell of a lot of it. Like if you have that much of a glow, it looks like you just kind of pasted it on there, and it doesn't look that good. I traditionally keep the spread at 0% for a weapon outline, and then you just adjust the size of the glow. And I think that looks pretty good. But you can mess with some other things too. I think for this one, I'm gonna add a little bit of noise to it because that, it's Thorn, man. It looks evil, and adding some noise to that, like, yeah, there we go. No, that's too much. About right there. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work for now. Okay, so we got our weapon, we got the glow, so it's separated out from the background a little bit more. And then the other thing you need to do is text. Now, in this little text folder, I have a couple different things. I have this top layer, so Thorn. So that now we know what it is, Thorn, and then that's not in-depth review. There we go. Thorn in-depth review, and you can move the text around a little bit as well to your liking. Sometimes it's nice to have the text kind of going over the weapon itself. I can honestly just move Thorn down just a little bit like that, and then move in-depth review up a little bit, so it's not kind of going over the weapon too much. The other thing I have in this little layer here of text is a gradient so say here's the Thorn in-depth review. Okay, that looks pretty good. But that just kind of helps separate the text out from the background a little bit more. You're going to see Thorn, not the background. Your eye's going to just go straight to the word Thorn, in-depth review, see Thorn, when you look at the thumbnail as well. And that little text gradient just helps out a little bit more. You're not going to be distracted by all this empty space now. And there you go. That's how I do a lot of my weapon reviews. It doesn't take too terribly long when I'm not explaining it, of course. And then I would just, file, save it as a Thorn thing. I would just save that for this file. Save it as a JPEG, and you can see all the images that I've ever worked on. That's actually not a lot. And then there you go, save. And you've just made a YouTube thumbnail. I probably made that seem a little bit easier than it was, but that's how I do mine. Hopefully you learned a couple little tips during that, and you can start making some thumbnails for yourself. Yeah. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Later.